All right, welcome to Unit 1. We are going to start this year by talking about quadratic functions. Now, we ended Algebra 1 last year talking about quadratic functions, but this year we're going to do a little bit more work with them in that we're going to go a little bit deeper as to the solutions to quadratic functions. Last year we only talked about real solutions. This year we're going to talk about imaginary solutions. We'll get into those later. But first, what I want you to look at is the first three concepts. Notice they're all review. This is all stuff that we did last year, where we ended the year. We learned last year how to solve quadratic equations by graphing and factoring. We learned how to complete the square, and we learned how to use the quadratic formula. Now, so we're going to go through these three pretty quickly since they're all review, and then we're going to go a little bit more in depth with the complex numbers and roots and the quadratic inequalities. We'll get to those later too. So let's read through our in this unit little blurb. So we'll be reviewing how to solve quadratic equations using the four main methods: graphing, factoring, completing the square, and the quadratic formula. The purpose of this is to extend quadratic solutions to the complex plane. Sometimes quadratic functions don't ever cross the x-axis, but they still have roots. Those are the imaginary roots I was talking about earlier. We'll also be solving quadratic inequalities, which are just like linear inequalities, but with curves instead of lines. So we'll be graphing, we'll be shading, we'll be making lines, dotted lines, solid lines, stuff like that. And then finally, we'll be graphing quadratic functions in vertex form, which is easier to see how the graphs are transformed. So far, you guys have learned how to graph quadratics in standard form, which is a little difficult, but once we see them in vertex form, they're much, much easier to graph. All right, so that is the introduction to this unit.